This is my Jikov carburettor off a Skoda Estelle 120 that I recently bought off eBay. It's been running a little bit rough since I got back from collecting it. Return journey was about 120 miles. Found towards the end of that it wasn't really ticking over, especially when warm. So it led me to suspect there might be a blockage in the carburettor. This isn't a video instructional one, it's just really me messing about and just seeing what I've got, just reviewing what I've got basically. I may well cover more of the car in a future YouTube video if it's worthwhile. So this is the carburettor off the car. I've obviously taken the bolts off the top and I've also taken out the float valve and the float itself. Did find a strange thing with the float. It does seem to have some kind of liquid in it. I've left it for a couple of days. I can still hear something in it. Obviously it doesn't affect the carburettor because it hasn't been overflowing or flooding or anything like that. So this is the float here. And I can certainly hear something in it, but it's not affecting the performance, so I'm just going to put it back in again. But I'll just shake it and maybe the microphone will pick it up, just what I'm hearing. It's very slight, but I'm not really sure what's in there. It might be something that was in the original design that retained something. So with the carburettor itself, I'm going to take the top off, and I managed to keep the gasket fairly well intact. A little bit the top I lost there. Looks like it could well be an original one. Looks quite old. I'm not going to use that again. You can get replacements, gaskets and other bits of the carburettor. Many sources. Skoparts.de, I think is Germany based and have been recommended. That's very good for these things, and you can pick up things like this gasket for a few euro. I did experiment. My other half has a Brother scan and cut machine, and you can actually scan this in and it'll just reproduce it, it'll cut out for you. So we tried that and it created that, which I thought was quite fun. Obviously you can tell it's from a packet of cereal, one that I'm not particularly fond of, but it's in the house. And the way it's cut out, it almost etches it out of a piece of paper, and then you can just pop out the actual gasket itself. Can be a bit tricky, but I poked all the bits through and came up with this. So I may well actually stick that on when I put the carburettor back together again and see how it works. So when I took the carburettor off and I was taking it apart, I did notice with the solenoid valve, this is the fuel solenoid valve, and it cuts off the fuel supply. I think it's just during idle. Noticed that this was actually aerodited on. Probably should have left it that way, but being curious as I am, I actually undid it and got rid of the aerodite. So I can screw it back in, but it doesn't tighten up and it's quite loose. So not to say what I'm going to do, that I could blank it off, or I could just aerodite it back on again. Don't really want to aerodite it back on again, so I may well, in the longer term, try and get a second-hand carburettor. The solenoid valve, I took it off, checked it on the battery direct, and the valve does work. So at least that's working. With the carburettor itself, I did clean the jets. These are a couple of emulsion tubes, and then you've got the fuel jets further down within the float bowl. From looking at other YouTube videos and advice, it seems best to clean these things using a compressed air system. Unfortunately, I don't have compressed air, but I do have plenty of drinking straws. So I thought, well, let's try a drinking straw. So got one here that's about the right size. Stick the jet in the end and then just blow. Obviously it's not very high pressure, but it may well help in getting bits out. I did find with one though that there did seem to be something lodged in it, and obviously my puff isn't very high, so needs something to give it a bit more encouragement. Again, looking at other forums and guides and so forth, sometimes you can use thin wire. It's not recommended because you can easily damage the jet itself. So I used a bit of household wire to a domestic lamp, and just took a very fine filament, parted that from the wire itself, and that's very, very much thinner than the actual size of the hole in the jet. And I just basically passed that through, and it seemed to dislodge whatever was in there. And that may well have been the thing that was causing the problem. I'm not sure. So anyway, so I've done that one. So I do need to do something about that. May well just, yes, blank it off. I'm not sure. Also here I've got an air jet here, which you can use for idle adjustment. It's got something on it. It looks as if someone's used tape on it to stop it rattling out or moving. I don't know whether it originally had an O-ring on it or a rubber ring or something like that. If there is, I couldn't see anything in the Haynes manual to identify something like that. I may need to get one of those. Just seeing if there's anything else there that on the carb itself that's worth looking at. One other thing I did find was within the float bowl itself, there's a lot of kind of clay type silty matter that I got out with a some little cotton buds. I just put that out there, cotton bud soaked in a solvent. So what I might do is fit an inline filter to the car itself, to the fuel line before it enters the carburettor, just to ensure that whatever it is, it might have been some kind of sealer that was used on the petrol tank, I don't know, just so that doesn't get in there anymore. So that's about it. I'm going to put my carburettor back together again. I'm going to try using this cut-out gasket, see how it works, and also probably blank off the solenoid valve space there. Don't think it's actually, I think I can get away with it for the moment, not needing it, but we'll see. And in the longer term, try and get another carburettor.